Welcome to Western Synergy. My name is Nathan Johnson. I'm joined by Joshua Daychief. Western Synergy is a podcast about entrepreneurs, innovators, and just generally amazing people in Western Canada. And I appreciate you taking the time to join me on the show today.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Why don't we start out with just you telling our audience just a little bit about Advanced Ag?
Sure. Yeah. We're an innovative biotech company located in Raymond. We've been working with bacteria for a very long time, 24 years now. In 2025, it'll be 24 years. So we start off with water and wastewater treatment, looking at cycling nutrients in lakes and ponds. And then about 8 years ago, we got into agriculture, looking at how bacteria would respond in soil ecosystems as a benefit for crop enhancement.
So how did you find out about the whole kind of bacteria technology ecosystem?
Oh man, it's quite a journey, right?
We got enough time here.
Yeah, we do. I mean, but 24 years ago, you got to think people weren't really talking about bacteria in a good light. Why would I want that in our soil ecosystem? It was actually my mother who started the company. She was a technical writer by trade, and she was writing business proposals and business plans for other entrepreneurs. And there was an individual in Florida who was looking at bacteria to clean up the Everglades. So she said, "Hey, is there anyone up here in Canada doing this?" And he said, "No, why would you want to use bacteria in lakes that are frozen half the year?" So of course there's no one up here doing it. She went directly to the supplier and said, "Hey, can I be the Canadian distributor?" And they said, "Sure." So, years go by, a lot of research has gone on, and we're now the largest distributor and part owner of the intellectual property globally.
So are you guys mainly operating in Western Canada, or do you guys go outside of Western Canada, maybe even internationally?
Yeah, it started in Western Canada. You'd think because we're in Southern Alberta, it would really start to grow here first. A lot of our growth happened in Saskatchewan, believe it or not, to start things off. And then, we're pretty much coast to coast at this point. We have a location in Kelowna and then in New Brunswick brewing our bacteria. So anywhere in between, very Canadian focused, but we have international plans to grow into some new markets too. So we moved into Montana. I'm actually going to a trade show in January in Kansas, and we're looking at a partnership in Australia. So there's a big world out there of agriculture, but we're definitely still trying to stay focused here in Canada.
So with a name like Advanced Ag, is the primary target ag? Because at the beginning you mentioned sanitary systems, sewage, wastewater, and stuff like that. Is that still a bigger part of your business?
It's a part of the business we can't ignore. There's more and more water issues. We're seeing it in developments. You see the storm retention ponds, large lake associations. The water issues aren't going away, so it's definitely part of our business that's still growing. But yeah, we made the trade name change from Advanced Water Technologies to Advanced Ag in 2018, I want to say.
I gotcha.
Yeah, so it's definitely the primary focus of our business for sure.
Okay, is the agricultural side of it.
Yeah.
And again, for our audience, we're in Southern Alberta. The agriculture is probably, if not the biggest industry, probably right next to energy and stuff for our area, where it's not quite Northern Alberta. So I'd say a little more agriculture, manufacturing, food processing. So that's really fascinating. Is there other things that your product can be used for? Like we just talked about, like wastewater and ag. Can it go beyond that?
Well, you even think about retail, right? There's dog owners that don't want to fertilize their lawns. We do have a retail division. And there was a point in the business. We're still a very, very small company, a small, medium-sized company. But, there gets to a point where you try to do all of it and don't do any of it well. So in the early days, we really focused on lakes and ponds, even though we know the bacteria are good for composting, manure management, things like that. And then just focused on ponds. And I think we were able to build a reputation with many municipalities across Western Canada. And that allowed us to jump into ag.
So is it would you guys consider yourself is it like a chemistry business or a technology business?
Yeah, it's definitely more biology focused.
Okay.
I would say the ag industry as a whole over the last 100 years, 50 years, and a lot of the products they use has been really chemistry focused. And that's very important. I mean, fertilizer has been one of the greatest innovations for mankind, right? It helps feed the world. We can grow crops with it. But what we're finding is that through a lot of different research projects, that biology really plays a key in this as well in terms of sustainable soil health. So for us, it's creating more of a balance in the industry, not so much far leaning into chemistry, but having a component of biology in there as well.
So this sounds like kind of like I maybe would say a safer alternative to using like chemical treatment and
For sure.
fertilizer. Not to say that like there's different things like pesticides and all sorts of other stuff where I'm not educated enough to speak on them, but this sounds like a more organic alternative that has
Yeah.
sounds like there's a benefit would be safety, but maybe you can talk more to like why someone would be encouraged to use your service and potentially switch, or they go in tandem. Maybe you
Yeah,
can talk
so
a
there's
little more about
multiple
that.
different things there. I mean, economics comes into play. As good as the product is or sounds
Mhm.
like it is,
Yeah. Good
there's
old.
really no sustainability without profitability,
Yeah.
especially for farmers, right?
Yeah.
They don't want to buy a product and then they're losing money on it just because they're trying something. We have to come in there and make them money or save them money.
Mhm.
And so that's really been our focus. So it's really just a different way of thinking. Like rather than saying, okay, this crop needs nitrogen or this crop needs an available form of phosphorus, what we're going to dump some fertilizer on there. We know our bacteria can utilize what's already in the soil ecosystem or the atmosphere. I mean, our atmosphere is made of nitrogen mostly, right? So there is nitrogen there. It's not all plant available. What creates it to be plant available is bacteria. So we do have nitrogen fixing bacteria and bacteria that will solubilize phosphorus that is in an otherwise unavailable form to an available plant form.
Okay.
So it's just a different way of thinking. It's utilizing what's there, what's in the environment. Not to say that, there's no need to fertilize. There is. But if we can cut that back by 20%, 25%, that's a huge cost savings for farmers. And we're doing it in a natural way. So there's that component. But then even from another chemistry side, fungicides, for example, in the potato world, a lot of farmers will use 4 to 6 passes of fungicide on their potatoes to deal with fungal infections. We're developing a blend of bacteria that will consume fungal infections naturally, rather than a chemical product that would otherwise harm soil biology when applied.
So it sounds like you guys have a really good option, not even an alternative, but a really good option. So is this something that like, if it was up to you, should just every farm switch to this and be going all out on it? Or is there something more to the complexity of this product?
Definitely complex. I mean,
Okay.
we're just scratching the surface and all the things we're seeing are really promising, but we're just starting to understand this, right? And you got to imagine when we got into ag 8 years ago, it was a very small group of regenerative, outside the box thinking individuals that wanted to work with us. We had a very small client base. But as we started to see these results on the farm and making these farmers money, saving them money, we're in a very tight-knit ag community, not just in Southern Alberta, but I would say across Canada.
Okay.
I always say you're one farmer away from knowing every farmer in Canada. I
Yeah,
truly
yeah,
believe that.
I agree with you. From working in the industrial and the agricultural sector for a while doing mechanical repairing,
Yeah.
you're absolutely right.
And so I feel like, big industry, big ag companies really haven't bought onto that or started to look at this until the last few years. 8 years ago, if you would ask me, yeah, Bayer or Syngenta or BASF are going to start looking at these biological technologies, I would have said there's no way.
Mhm.
But now they are. So, it's interesting is all that work we've done over the 8 years, it's just a timing thing. I think the world is ready for it. I think agriculture is ready for it. And I think competition's good. The big ag companies getting involved in this is good for us. We're not so crazy anymore.
Then are you guys considered like on the edge, cutting edge, bleeding edge of this technology?
Right now, we are at the cutting edge of it.
Okay.
We've put a lot of money and resources into research.
Mhm.
I think, we've built a really strong client base. We've built a strong business. We're not just going to sit here and say, this is our product. These are our products. They're staying this way, for the foreseeable future. We're pushing the boundaries of research every single day and learning lots about them every single day. In fact, I'd go as far as to say that in the last 12 months, we've learned more about our products and our technology than we have in the last 24 years.
Can you talk about that more? Like
Sure.
what's happened in the last 12 months over like, and this is kind of like a more fun business question for
Yeah.
audiences, is that something that I think is not iterated a lot when people look at an entrepreneur or an innovator, when they look at them, they just look at like the end result. Like,
Yeah.
one day this person just magically held up their hand and they had the product and they were successful, but it's like a really long running journey.
Yeah.
So like in your guys' journey where you described like you've had 8 years, but you're saying this last 12 months has really been the impact.
Yeah.
Could you talk more about maybe the difference between the previous years or what happened in the 12 months?
Well, I mean, let's go back 8 years. So when we first got into ag, we had like 2 customers. And any other customer we wanted to pursue, they wanted research. So you're kind of caught with, okay, I need the research in order to get the sales, and I need the sales to pay for the research, right?
Yeah.
We're very lucky here in Southern Alberta to have a lot of non-dilutive funding available to companies like ours. And it is getting better in terms of clean tech agriculture companies. But that was a struggle in the early days, right? Like the research, every amount of profit that we had went back into research. And it was a tough thing to do because we were moving ahead so slowly. In the last 12 months, we've been able to, with the profits we have, with the client base we have now, put a larger investment into research, bring in lab techs, bring in PhDs. And the biggest leap for us has been on the genetic side of things. These bacteria species are living organisms. They've been around a heck of a lot longer than we have. So when you look at their DNA makeup, their genetic makeup, the fingerprint that we're able to look at and observe, some of them are directly related to drought tolerance, for example, or directly related to disease resistance. They're built into the genetic makeup of these bacteria species. So it's allowed us to hone in on what species we should use for a seed treatment, for example, or a fertilizer, or, if we have an area that, like in southern Saskatchewan, or even here with drought, there's areas the last 3 or 4 years, we've had, 3 or 4 years of drought.
Mm-hmm.
Last year wasn't bad, but we're able to take the right bacteria and say, okay, here, we're going to implement this in this scenario and get better results based off of genetics. So that's been a big leap for us. And then obviously having the staff and the personnel involved as well.
Lots of business books you read will show, do this, then this, then this, and repeat. And eventually it gets going faster and faster. And then you get to this certain point where it's running at full speed, right?
Yeah.
So it sounds like you guys are getting closer to that wheel spinning at a speed where it's going to just self-propagate or self-push.
I wish I could have looked back 8 years ago and I could have looked at a big company that's already done this and has paved the way on how to grow one of these biotech ag companies. There wasn't. We were literally one of the first ones in Canada doing this, if not the first ones, maybe North America, right? At least from what we were looking at in terms of the market. But it didn't exist.
Yeah.
Another good thing for us has been you're starting to see a lot of investment, a lot of VC money go into AI and biotech. So a company like Pivot Bio, for example, in the US, they've raised $613 to $18 million. So they have a marketing budget. They have the experts come in and like, this is how we're going to grow this business. We can then look at that and go, okay, this is interesting. This is good. Like I said, I think competition in this realm is good for us because we're not just, creating the wheel ourselves time and time again.
What's the one thing that goes on in advanced ag from the biotech side that kind of has you the most excited?
The research stuff really excites me because I feel like we're just figuring stuff out every day. It's like, oh my goodness, look at this, look at that. But at the end of the day, it's creating value for our farmers. That's what gets me the most excited is when a farmer calls me and they're like, hey, I gained 10 bushel or 10% on my bushel weight. On my oats or my wheat, or I have lentils where I saved 2 fungicide passes on. We've dealt with disease. Those are real life results. No matter what we do in the lab or in the greenhouse, the fact that we're able to go out in the field and make these farmers money and have real life results, that's what gets me out of bed in the morning.
So what's one of the more intangible values that excites you? So one thing I find talking to business owners is that tangible values drive the wheel. So we get more bushels, better development, less pesticide usage. It's all very mathematical. It can be on a spreadsheet. But what's some of the intangibles that gets you excited? When you're out talking with people, every business owner is kind of aware of these. What are some of the intangible things that you run into?
To me, it's the awareness around what we're doing. I'll never forget the first meeting we had. It was in our office. And there's 13 people there, and they were probably there for the free Subway.
That was
office?
It.
Yeah, but the first rendition of this office, which was over here, right?
Yeah.
And they were there for the free food. I guarantee it, right? They weren't there to learn about biologicals.
Yeah.
Now we're talking to hundreds of people, 40 people, 50 people, large farms, and they're traveling from all over to learn about this stuff. So the intangible piece for us is just the awareness and the interest in what we're doing. We've had big industry companies come into our office and poke around and want to learn more. For me, the tangible results, the reduction of fertilizer, reduction of chemical-based products, but then just people wanting to be a part of something and lean on us for education has been really, really nice to see. And going back to even my mother, she taught at the college for 34 years. At the end of the day, we've all turned into educators and teachers, and so it's something that we love doing. It may not result in a sale right away, but we're building this group of farmers here in Canada that just are hungry for information, and they're leaning on us for that. So that's been big to see.
It sounds like your company organization is running business to business. Is there a business to consumer path that you guys are interested in, or is it primarily going to grow business to business?
Our original business strategy was, okay, let's look at selling to retailers or the companies that have, that reach with all these farmers. And in the early days, it was good for us because we'd get that big order in December, and we were able to cash flow some things, put more money into research. But what we found was that it wasn't necessarily sustainable to go that way. You have to understand, a lot of these retailers, their primary focus is to sell fertilizer, is to sell these chemical-based products. This was just another product they were offering. So not only did it kind of fall to the back of the line, we didn't necessarily know which farms this was going to, right? And so we weren't able to build a relationship with the farmer, understand what they're trying to achieve with our products. And I feel like we lost some opportunities that way. So what we've done, not that we're going to completely move away from retailers, but we've created more of a direct-to-farm strategy now, where we're working with these farmers. It's okay, getting on a call with them. Let's look at some soil samples. Let's look at your fertility program. What are you trying to achieve on this farm using our products? And then almost hand-holding them throughout the entire process to make sure that they're getting that return on investment. These biological products are exciting, but they're not a commodity. They're not something you throw on a shelf in a retail. It goes out the door, one size fits all. That's not how they work. They're living organisms, and they're very sensitive to UV or how they're applied or what crop they're applied to. We understand that. So now we're building a database of the actual people using our product, and we're able to work with them and answer their questions and help them along if there are issues.
Then is your scaling plan more of one that you guys are going to have like more offices in more locations or warehouses? Because like it sounds from the understanding, like bacteria is a living organism. So obviously its shelf life is probably like not indefinite.
It's not great. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wish it was indefinite. That'd be nice, but
no, for sure.
Yeah.
So then is it part of your business plan, like the logistical part too?
For sure.
Yeah.
And part of the thing I didn't mention before is our products, a lot of them are brewed on site. So you have to imagine a lot of our farmers are setting up these tanks. They're like growing this bacteria on site. We give them the kits to do that. If someone comes to us and is like, hey, I'm interested in your products. Okay, well, you gotta brew these products. You gotta do all these things, buy this equipment. That's a barrier right there.
Yeah.
So a lot of the products we've been focused on over the last couple of years have been ready to use products, something that just shows up, you put on your seed. Yeah. You don't actually physically have to go out and spray the product or apply it through a pivot. You can just put it on your seed and go.
The barrier to entry. So what is this is great for people that are in sales or our audience that's listening to business. How do you guys overcome like that barrier? Because I'm assuming the equipment is how you get the big results, right? Sure. Like, so you put in the tanks and the heaters and everything and brew up lots of this stuff for big. So what is your guys' tactic for overcoming that barrier when you're working with potential clients?
I think it, again, is looking at the ready-to-use products like a seed treatment. You're starting to see the bigger companies, like they're really focused on seed treatments, biological seed treatments, which can deal with fungal infections, pests, and then a reduction in fertilizer and stress resistance.
So is the future that?
I believe it is. So this is going to be our first year where we're launching a seed treatment product. I think ultimately brewing the product on farm will never get rid of that. It allows farmers to, produce mass quantities of this stuff for cheap. And when you're looking at biological products and you just have a jug of a product and it says add 1 ounce per acre, you're not going to see anything, but if we're adding gallons and gallons and gallons of this stuff per acre, that's where you're going to start seeing more of a benefit. So I don't think we'll ever get rid of brewing, but just to get into the door with new leads with a ready-to-use product where we're removing some of those barriers, I think it's going to be big for us. I'm really excited about that.
So in my mind, I have like a little bit of want you to paint a picture for me. So like I can picture a jug. So like kind of like your standard 4 liter, 1 gallon jug of like stuff. Yeah. And so if I'm like a farmer that wants to get into this and I've got like say a quarter section,
Yep.
what am I buying from you? Like, can you kind of give us paint us a picture physically of what this
Yeah.
looks
So
like?
so now we have three products that we have. Over the last 8 years, it's been one flagship product, which has been our biofertilizer. That goes in at planting time. That's the nitrogen fixation, the phosphorus solubilization, where you can cut back on fertilizer costs. That's still a great product, and we have more data and more research on that product than anything. But now we have a seed treatment. So what if you
Okay.
coat
So
your seeds with
just the
bacteria?
first thing you're talking about,
Yeah.
what are we talking about physical size? Am I carrying
Yeah,
two
yeah, yeah.
jugs? Do I got a truck
Sure.
with me?
So if you're going to brew,
Yeah.
we'll give you a kit to brew the
Okay.
bacteria, which is the food for the bacteria and the bacteria itself. It's
Okay.
all liquid. The food isn't a powder, but you'd add it to a tank and that would produce, let's say, 300 gallons of bacteria.
So with the shelf stable stuff, I still
Mhm.
need the tank and the heater and the
No,
controller.
so that's where I think we're going to get through this barrier with this shelf stable stuff is that we're able to just put it on your seed. You know, your seed is
Okay.
right there. You spray it on, you coat it,
Mhm.
and then you go out and seed. You have to understand, like seed is it's so fragile, right? But if you can give it the benefits early on, just like a baby or an infant, right? You're giving it everything it needs all at once. It's going to be healthier, you know, through years of its life. Same thing goes for a crop. Like if you're giving it everything it needs throughout the entire grow season, it's going to withstand drought. It's going to withstand stress, disease, things like that. We're building a healthier plant right from the seed.
So if you're out on the ground selling to someone,
Mhm.
when do you give them the tank and the heater and the growth kit
Yep.
versus the shelf stable? Like what's the deciding factor between the two? Or is it like a combination of like you should take both?
Yeah, so right now we're launching the seed treatment this year based on a trial basis. Like we want to see more of it out there. We had 2 trials last year in the field. One of them we gained 12 bushels an acre on field peas.
Wow.
The other one was 10% bushel increase on oats. So very promising.
Mhm.
I need to see more of that. Again, I don't think we'll ever get rid of brewing, but this product could potentially, you know, save on the brewing side of things when
Yeah.
when approaching a new customer. I need to see more of it in terms of research. I'm not just going to go crazy with the seed treatment and get it out everywhere. We're going to do more research to get to that point.
So this is kind of like you guys were saying that getting people in with the heaters, the tank, and all the brewing is like it's a pretty big ask of people. But if they can
Yep.
get introduced with the shelf stable stuff and they see a result, then
Then
it's
they
kind of the
then,
next
then they'll
conversation.
brew
Yeah,
and
how do I take it from here?
yeah, and I think to get the first maybe 10 guys to brew was really an issue, but my marketing strategy now and sales strategy now is listen, I can tell this farmer everything they want to hear. Right? It's like I could tell you all the benefits, all the great things our product's going to do. But here's a list of 20 farmers, 15 farmers. Give them a call. They've used our product for 5, 6 years. Give them a call and ask, you know, the pros and cons of our products. And that to me, I think in our tight knit egg community here in Western Canada and Canada as a whole has been huge for us. Word of mouth has been everything.
So backing the story up to back when your mother got into it.
Hmm.
So it sounds like you guys have parts of your family here working.
Yeah.
So was it just like you guys were roped in, or was it like, you know, or then you developed the passion, or was it just something that like you were kind of interested in the whole time? Maybe talk a little more about how you kind of like decided to get into this.
Sure. Yeah, mom's a visionary, and to this day, she believes we are saving the earth. She really genuinely does, and did 24 years ago. She really did. She thought, okay, you know what? Water is our most precious resource. We need to figure out a way to treat it naturally. Otherwise, it's going to become an issue. And it is. It is becoming an issue. So that part of the business is growing. But yeah, I mean, I just remember being a kid and always having to help out, you know, carry jugs. Our office was our motorhome way back in the day. It was like
Nice.
that's where we were keeping the bacteria was this old motorhome. And then we upgraded when we moved to her garage. And then we bought this facility here, the shop here, and had a designated facility for brewing. But I just remember being a kid. My sister was younger than I was, and just being involved in the business. So it just seemed like a family affair. Like we were chasing this dream for a very, very long time. And to sit here today, like we've achieved our dream. We really have. Everything now on is really just the cherry on top, in my opinion. You know, this was our vision from day one, and we've done it, and we're going to continue to push. But yeah, mom's living the dream right now.
Yeah, that's awesome. I always like reference back to people that are getting into business, and they always kind of say like, what's the like one piece of advice you give? And the common thing I say to them is it's like a brick a day. They're
Yeah.
like, if you lay a brick a day, it's an easy task for you to understand. And so if you lay a brick a day, at the end of a year, you've laid 365 bricks. And if you take 365 bricks, you might have built a little wall, maybe a fire pit or something. But what happens is I think a lot of people forget that each day you put that brick down.
Yeah.
A lot of people just come along and they're like, oh, this person always had a fireplace, or they always had this pizza
Yeah.
oven, right? But they weren't there for the brick a day. And it really sounds like your mother and your family and
Hmm.
you yourself really kind of embrace that process of, a brick a day. And now we sit in this, like, really, it's a really nice meeting room and it's a beautiful office. And, it's well deserved, well earned.
And what people don't understand too is like your brick wall is going to tip over.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're laying all these bricks and something bad happens and you're like, I got to start over.
Mm-hmm.
We've had that. Everyone wants to be their own boss and be in business and grow this empire. It is not easy. And I think if you were to go back 24 years ago, or in a time machine, we go back and we don't have all this knowledge and everything on, I always say we know how to run a good business now because we've made so many screw ups that we know what not to do in business.
Yeah.
I genuinely believe that. I don't know if we go through this again. I genuinely don't. It has been taxing. It is, there's probably been numerous times where we should have shut things down and we've had to, subsidy the business with other paychecks. And,
Mm-hmm.
so it's not for the faint of heart. It's been a journey and I think it's just a timing thing. The world is ready for this. It wasn't 24 years ago. It wasn't 8 years ago, but here we are and we're at the leading edge of it. So being an entrepreneur is not easy. And anyone who's done it, I respect them because again, yeah, you lay those bricks and it takes time, but your wall will get tipped over from time to time too. And you have to have the strength and the passion to start rebuilding that wall.
Jumping forward, what's kind of like the new, like if you can give like one kind of thing that you guys are looking at, like a newer path or something you're developing or something, is there anything you want to share from that category?
Yeah. I mean, we actually traveled down to Silicon Valley a few weeks ago and met with some of the big companies, looked at biological, the VC world and where money's going in terms of AI and biologicals. And we realized we're in a really good position. But we realized too that we have to make some really good decisions to explode this thing. Like we've done a really good job building this, doing it sustainably, but we need to set our company up to grow globally, not just here in Canada. So we are just closing our first round of funding right now, which has been a learning curve for us.
Yeah, good for you.
And you have to imagine, keeping this in the family for so long. This has been a tough thing to even wrap our heads around. But we realize that, this is probably bigger than us. And if we want to really take this thing to the next level, we're going to have to bring in some capital, but also some strategic partners that can help us navigate this and make the right decisions to really grow this thing sustainably globally, but also maybe with an exit strategy or something like that down the road. So that's the next step. 2025, we'll be using venture capital money to grow this thing in other markets.
That's amazing. That's super exciting. And it's really one of the things that I absolutely love about doing the Western Synergy podcast is that we get to talk to a lot more people that are kind of crossing multiple spectrums, where when you talk to someone about agriculture, a lot of people kind of think, still, like, I think it's improved. I don't think people think that like it's a guy riding around on a horse or anything.
Yeah.
Like, I think people all know what tractors and combines and a lot of the newer technology that's come, but it's really like tech is starting to touch down on more and more and more places. And I think what's awesome is that because of the reduction in the cost of compute and the overall availability of talent, that there is now more opportunities for people to, say, put venture capitalism into like an ag tech company, as opposed to just saying it has to be tech or software. So for me, this is like super exciting hearing you guys talk about this stuff. So based on everything we're talking about, do you have any future predictions or anything you'd like to share with our audience about this industry?
I think just in general, we're in a very exciting time, not just in terms of tech, but farming specifically. I think over the next 5 to 10 years, we're going to see huge advancements, like we mentioned with AI, but biologicals specifically. there's a lot of data out there that suggests that, in 5 to 10 years, every farm will have a component of a biological on their farm, which is, if you told me that 10 years ago, I would have said that's nuts, right? So we know we're heading in the right direction. Agriculture is heading in a very exciting, transformative direction. And we're happy to be a part of it.
What would you convey across to like my daughters, your
Yeah.
kids? Like what's the exciting message you would say?
I mean, I think we've talked about farmers being more profitable, but at the end of the day, we need to feed the world quite a bit more in 50 years than what we are now. And is it going to be through more food, or is it going to be through better food? And I think when we talk about how crops are produced, the quality of food it affects everyone. Everyone eats.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time to have a conversation with me. And again, this is thanks to our audience and everyone that's been participating in Western Synergy. Hopefully I'll get to talk to you again soon. And again, this was Joshua Day Chief, and my name's Nathan Johnson. Thanks again for joining us on Western Synergy.